What's up, you guys? It's Anna Grace, and today's video, if you can't already tell by the title, is all about how to spend less so that you can travel more. So the first thing is transportation. This is typically going to be your biggest expense when traveling, especially if you're doing an international trip, because international flights can get very pricey. But do not fret, because there is a million and one ways on how to save money on flights. Maybe not a million, but there are lots of ways. So if you really want to save a lot of money on your flights, the most important thing is to be flexible, because if you want to save money, then you may have to leave or arrive on a different day or maybe a different month. You might have to go in a totally different season than you were planning on going. But you can save a lot of money. These are some things that you want to think about. Wherever place you're going, you want to find out what the most popular times are for tourists. What time of the year is it most crowded, most popular, where there's going to be the most flights going to that place? Because whatever time that is, those flights are going to be the most expensive. So for example, if you want to travel to New York for New Year's Eve, those tickets are going to be way more expensive than if you were to go, say, in like March or April or sometime like that. Okay, so next thing is how to find the cheapest flights. There's a ton of websites that you can go to compare flights and find the cheapest one. My personal favorite is Skyscanner. You can put in your destination without a date and it'll tell you like the cheapest times to travel to those places, which is really cool. And also there's a feature on there where it will just show you what the cheapest flights are to wherever, anywhere in the world. So that's really cool if you are really flexible and you just want to travel anywhere and you don't really care where you go. That's a cool option. You can just jump on there, see what the cheapest flight is at that time or that weekend or next week or whatever, and just buy a ticket and go. You could use Google Flights, which is really cool. It's really easy. It's just google.com/flights, and I think you put in your date and your location or whatever, and it brings up all the cheapest flights from like every website. So that one's really cool. There's also Kayak, TripAdvisor, Momondo, I don't know if that's how you say it, Momondo, Priceline, things like that. They're all really good options. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is there is this myth that the earlier you book your flight, the cheaper it is. Sometimes that is true. However, I have found personally that the cheapest flights are like either 2 to 3 months in advance or like 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Now, this is only if you're flexible and your trip doesn't require a ton of planning. I wouldn't suggest taking an international trip on like 2 or 3 weeks notice. Like, you want to do it earlier than that. However, I have found that about 2 to 3 weeks before that flight is when the tickets are the cheapest. Don't take my word for it, look it up, go on all the flight comparison sites and see for yourself what I'm talking about. So another thing you want to take into consideration is the airport that you're flying in and out of. So if you fly out of a major airport, it's a lot cheaper than flying out of a smaller local airport. Okay, so let's say that you want to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico. If you fly directly into the Santa Fe airport, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if you were to fly into the Albuquerque airport, because it's a major airport. Next is, let's see, what do I have written down here? Okay, so if you book your flight on a weekday, it's a lot cheaper than getting a flight on the weekend. So that's another thing. Usually weekday flights are a lot cheaper than weekend flights, and also weird time flights, so like red eyes or like really early in the morning, or like maybe you arrive like in the middle of the day. Times like that a lot of times are a lot cheaper than like the ideal flight times, I guess. You want to book in advance. You want to book in the off season. You want to book during the weekday instead of the weekend, and if possible, you want to book your flight flying in and out of a major airport. Take those 4 things into consideration and you will find super cheap flights. Another thing is airline miles. I'm not going to go super into detail on this because I could make an entire video on it, but basically if you are able to get a airline credit cards, so like a Capital One Venture card is a really good one. If you're able to get a credit card like that, you can really rack up a lot of airline miles. So if that's an option for you, then do it. Another thing with transportation, besides flights, if you're trying to drive to places, another option is to carpool and ride share with people. So there's websites that you can go to. I think rideshare.com is one of them. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I will put them in the description bar for you guys to check out. So you can find people that are going to the same place as you. So especially if you live in or near a big city, you can pretty much find people that are driving to wherever that you want to go to. Again, you're going to have to be a little bit flexible with this because you can't just decide when that you want to go. You're going to have to kind of adhere to somebody else's schedule. But if you're willing to do that, it's a great option. And just, you know, you can find somebody that's going to wherever you're going, hit them up, talk to them, get to know them, make sure they're not sketchy or weird. And then you just ride with them to wherever they're going, and then when you get there you part ways or whatever. I guess you could hang out together if you wanted to. Find somebody that's willing to drive and just pay them gas money. Okay, so there's one more thing, and this depends on the country or city that you're in. This is safer in some places than it is in others, and that is hitchhiking. So obviously, first reaction I'm sure is, why are you suggesting hitchhiking? It's super dangerous. And yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. It can be super dangerous, especially if you're a solo female traveler. You definitely want to be more careful. However, there are some countries where hitchhiking is totally normal. It's a way of life. People do it all the time, and it's not a big deal for you to hitchhike. There are some countries, however, that hitchhiking is a totally terrible idea and you should never do it. But do your research. Find out if wherever you're traveling to is hitchhiker friendly, because if you're safe about it, it can be a really great and really cheap way to get around, especially if you're just going short distances and stuff like that. And also, as far as hitchhiking and ride sharing goes, a lot of people are really afraid of like getting in a car with a stranger, like traveling across the country with a stranger. But one of the major things about traveling is meeting people from all over the world, and when you're hitchhiking, you're gonna get to know them really well and you're gonna make a lot of friends along the way. So it's a great option to get around for cheap, and you get to make friends, so it's a win-win. Okay, so the next thing on my list is accommodations. A lot of people think that traveling, when you travel, you have to stay in a hotel. And that's not the case. You do not have to stay in a hotel. Hotels are very expensive, especially if you're traveling long term. Typically a hotel is like at least $100 a night. So yeah, if you're doing that every night for a long period of time, your budget is going to go down very quickly. Yeah, hotels are expensive. How do you save money on accommodations? First thing that you could do is Airbnb. In a lot of countries, Airbnb is way cheaper than a hotel, and you get like a whole house sometimes. You have your own private space. It's a lot cheaper, and you're kind of more immersed into the culture when you get an Airbnb as opposed to staying in a hotel. Another option is hostels. So I don't know how to explain it other than it's like a dorm. It's like you have your kitchen and living areas, and then you have your dorms with a bunch of beds usually, and you share a room with a bunch of people. Some people love them and some people hate them, but you'll never know until you try it. This is not for everybody. A lot of people do not like to live that closely with other people, especially other strangers. So you'll kind of have to use your own discretion to see if it's something that you could do or not. However, hostels are really cool because you're meeting travelers. You can meet a ton of really cool people from all over the world just from staying in a hostel, which is really cool, especially if you're traveling solo. Then you have all of these people now that you can make friends with and go travel around the city with. They're all there to see the city that you're in, so now you have friends and people to explore with. Another option is couch surfing, and again, this is not for everybody. Couch surfing is basically you stay on somebody's couch or room or wherever for a few days, and they let you stay there for free as long as you know, pick up after yourself and be a good guest. And yeah, So yeah, they have a bed. Sometimes it's a whole room. Sometimes they have an entire guest house for you to stay in. Most people I know haven't had any bad experiences with couch surfing. However, things do happen. You always want to just be safe and cautious. And if you have a red flag about something or you don't feel right about something, then always go with your gut. But for the most part, couch surfing is safe and it's totally free. You don't have to pay a dime. So the last thing, as far as accommodations go, is work exchange programs. So there's a lot of work exchange programs all over the world. There's an app called World Packers that you can download, and it has work exchange programs and volunteer programs all over the world. Basically what it is they'll let you stay in their hostel or house or farm or wherever. Sometimes it's a tent, for free in exchange for your work. There's a million different jobs that you can do. You can work on a rice farm in China. You can teach kids English in other countries. You can work in a hostel and just clean up or be a receptionist for a week. And typically you'll stay between like a few weeks to a few months depending on the projects. So one more thing for cheap accommodations is either house sitting or house swapping. Sometimes people will go travel themselves and they have a nice house with pets and plants that need watering, and they want somebody to stay at their house and take care of everything and basically hold the fort down while they're gone. So they will let you stay at their house while they're away, as long as you kind of look after everything, feed the dogs and the cats and water the plants. You know, typically these are pretty nice houses in some pretty awesome locations. And then house swapping is similar. If you have a house that you are willing to have somebody else stay in, you can actually find somebody in whatever country or city you're trying to go to, and if they want to go to the city you're in, then you can swap houses for a week or two. That one is a little bit more complicated, a little bit harder to plan and make happen, but it may be an option for you depending on where you live and where you're trying to go. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now on saving money while traveling. Let me know if you guys have any more questions about how to travel for cheap, or anything travel related. If you have questions or want me to make a video about it, let me know and I will do my best. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative and it will help you guys. Hopefully now you will stop using money as an excuse and you will go travel the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!